Hi everyone, I'm Gerad Riester. I'm a professional aviator, amateur mechanic, and a big RC enthusiast. Today I'm talking to you about RC flying. First thing I want to talk to you about what I want to talk to you about today is what happens when you crash, and how to respond to it. It's always a bad day. You always are going to be disappointed and frustrated, and but unfortunately it happens. Happens to all of us, and it's just part of the hobby. So you gotta learn to get through it and move on. The best thing you could do, the first thing you should do, the first thing, the first thing you should do is figure out why you crashed. That's step one. Crashing and fixing are just part of the hobby. Um, if you're gonna fly, it's gonna happen eventually. Now you can throw it away and buy a new one, but personally, I like fixing them, and in most cases, they can be fixed. Some are, total loss, but in most cases, they can be fixed, and that can be kind of fun and rewarding too. So I'm going to talk to you about fixing, but the first step in fixing is to analyze the crash. I was actually trained in accident investigation in the Air Force and flight safety, so I've got a little bit of a background in figuring out why an accident happened. This is a little bit easier as you got to observe it, real time. But sometimes it can get a little confusing what happened. So in this case, I've got my Hobby King Viper. I tried to fly it in gusty winds. So combination of overconfidence and not respecting the weather conditions that day. I caught a wind gust on landing, and it slammed into the ground, and it took a really hard hit. I'm actually impressed with how well it held up considering how hard it hit, but it did break the nose off just cleanly in one section, and it also broke one wingtip off. So actually, it's a pretty big structural component, but it'll actually be a really easy repair to do. I've actually repaired it before. I had a flip over and broke the tail off. Cracked the section right here, which I'd repaired previously, and broke one wingtip. And that held up. So structurally, I know my techniques work, and the planes fly well. This still flew straight, which is not always the case, but it was in this case. So we'll just talk about. So the next thing is how you're going to do the repair. My first step for these foamies is to run hot water over any section that is crunched or wrinkled to try to get it to straighten back out, and it usually works. That way, when you go to glue it together, everything's straight. Step two is the actual gluing part. Obviously, you want to fit your parts together, and then you got to choose your glue. Sometimes I use clear Gorilla Glue. Sometimes I use foam tack. Sometimes I use, I'll show you in another video, it's called Loctite Hysol. And then this is one that I started using recently. It's actually JB Weld. It's more of an auto / home repair product. Me being a amateur mechanic and tinkering on my cars, I've used JB Weld for decades. And I usually use the gray kind, which is this, which is actually is steel reinforced. That's a little too heavy for this application, and it's unnecessary. And it cures gray in color, and it makes the plane look ugly. So I like using this clear weld. It cures clear. That tail repair I showed you, I use that same product. So this is what I like to use. It's fairly light. It's light enough for this application. It's very strong. Not as strong as the gray kind, but of course you don't need that. For other types of repairs, if you need more flexibility, or you want to be able to possibly pull part of it apart again, you might want to use something like foam tack or some sort of rubber cement. If you want it never to come apart in that particular area again, JB Weld is the way to go. I've tested on many different kinds of foam. It doesn't melt any of the ones I've used it on, but definitely be careful. EPS, I tend to mix up EPS and EPO, but one of the foams, it can be very sensitive to the type of glue you use, and I have melted that foam with other kinds. I've never tried this on it, but all the Freewing planes I've got, Hobby King planes, this other brand's a Banana Hobby MiG 17. This JB Weld has worked well, and it hasn't melted the foam, so it works good. It will serve you well. I've learned a lot through trial and error, through my many crashes. I'm not saying that my methods are the best or that I'm an expert by any means. These are things that I know will work for me. So give them a try. So these foamy airplanes, they're resilient. They're actually pretty tough. They dent and scratch easy, but they can take some abuse. And the hit that resulted in this damage, that was a pretty hard hit. Lesson learned with that was flying in strong gusty winds, and a gust caught me in just the wrong moment when I was trying to land and just planted the nose. So the damage actually is minimal. This is a Hobby King Viper. It's the black edition. It was a pretty airplane, or was. We're going to try to get it looking pretty good again. It's not going to be perfect, but it'll fly good, I guarantee, and it'll be strong. I'll get many more good flights on it. So first step in fixing a foamy, I like to hit the crinkled areas, which you'll see here, and more pronounced right here on the edge. You hit those with some hot water, and that'll just help straighten out the foam a little, so it helps you get a little bit better joint. It's going to be wrinkly still, but it'll be fairly straight. So it just helps you straighten things out. Now, I'm not taking my receiver out or anything. I'm not dousing this whole thing with water. I'm just hitting the problem areas, and I'll just be careful and let it run off. If you, when in doubt, or if you have any doubt, just take your receiver off, take your electronics out if you have to. I removed the wings, and I removed everything that made sense. Just trying to keep, makes it easier to handle and easier to brace when you repair it. Yeah, I'm just gonna hit this with some hot water, and then the next step will be getting it all lined up, and then I'll show you the epoxy I use for these larger structural repairs. The hot water may create or cause what some people will call gator scale, or gatoring of the skin. Again, it's already been crashed. It's already been crunched, so we're not really worrying about that. We're just worrying about getting it straight and getting a nice repair, a nice strong bond on the airplane. Once you apply the hot water, pour it on there. Obviously, you're going to want it to dry before you put any glue or epoxy. Again, I'll show you what I use, but I use an epoxy for this. Just a strong, relatively light bond for the strength that you get, but I like to use that. And I'll show you that in the next one. Okay, welcome back to the Gerad Riester channel. Today we're talking about doing repairs to RC planes, and what I'm repairing today is my Hobby King Viper 64 Black Edition. A real nice flying plane that I just pushed into some bad weather conditions, i.e. gusty winds that were beyond my skill level. I'm not the worst flyer. I'm not the best. Probably average. We all have our limits, though, no matter how good you are. So what I'm going to do is I showed how to use hot water to straighten out the foam earlier. The parts I straightened out, the fuselage parts, are still drying. So we're going to fix the wingtip. So wingtip broke off, and it's fairly straight, and should be pretty easy to just glue it right back on. And then we'll just make sure we're supported and braced. I like to get a whole bunch of epoxy on there, more than I need. You'll need a little bit around the edges to make it strong. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be exactly smooth. Excess, I'll grind off with the Dremel. Dremel is probably besides maybe glue, is my #1 favorite RC tool that I use. I got a nice battery-powered wireless one, and I definitely recommend that. We'll talk about tools later, but there are a lot of tools, a lot of crossover for me. I also like working on cars, and so I use a lot of my car stuff on my airplanes, and for the most part it works. Not everything is appropriate, but a lot of things are. So I'm going to talk about what I'm going to do here. So we got our wing. We got our epoxy. I'm going to move this fuselage. You can't see it. I'm going to use my airplane stand for my wing. Actually, I might not. I might just set it down there flat. So JB Weld, clear weld, I mentioned before. It's very strong. It's probably overkill, but anything worth doing is worth overdoing. It comes with this one mixer, a little mini popsicle stick. Good for one application, basically. Mixer / applier. What I use is, I guess I eat a lot of pho and stuff. We get a lot of extra chopsticks, so I'll use my chopsticks as mixers and applicators, depending. And then for more fine applications, I just use toothpicks. Sometimes I also break off the tines off of plastic forks, again from takeout. Or I guess you could always borrow a couple from one of your fine fast food establishments that you frequent. Some are a little more flexible, and I'll just snap those off with a pair of dikes. And then save your Amazon boxes. I cut these up into squares, use them as mixing boards. Obviously, just throw them out when I'm done. So that's it. Those are my tools, and then we'll go through the mixing and applying. One thing I wanted to add is I like these syringe style tubes that you can get. Again, a lot of places: Lowe's, Home Depot, AutoZone, O'Reilly's, a lot of auto parts stores, and maybe even your grocery stores may carry them. But it just makes it easier getting the ratio right. I've also got these larger tubes here that I've used extensively. They've lasted a long time, as long as you don't mix the resin with the hardener. It generally doesn't dry out on you, but it's harder to get the ratio right, and I end up wasting a lot with these. So even though they're probably more cost effective than the syringe style, I like the syringe style. It just makes it easier to get a good mix. So there you have it. We have the wing repaired. Epoxy is driving. Epoxy is drying. A couple of things I forgot to mention. I use isopropyl alcohol to clean off any excess epoxy glue. Works on a lot of different stuff, but good for the epoxy for sure. Clean my hands off. Actually wiped off a little excess on the wing and my table. These are just cheap tables, so I don't mind, but try to keep them clean. So yeah, just wipe off any excess. It evaporates quickly. It doesn't damage the foam. And then I use just clear packing tape to help support. One, it holds everything together while the epoxy dries, and two, it adds a little bit of support to it. It's a permanent part of the wing at this point, so the structural tape. And I don't mind, again, because it's already damaged. It's not, looking pristine anyway, so might as well use what I can to support it. So again, this epoxy is probably overkill for this. You could probably use some foam tack or other cement, but it does the job. It's going to hold. I'd rather too strong than not strong enough, and anything that's worth doing is worth overdoing. So anything that's worth doing is worth overdoing, and you're going to see that a lot here. Welcome to Gerad Riester YouTube channel, and hope to talk to you again soon. Okay, the next step in the process is going to be to glue the fuselage together, but before that I'm going to do a little modification since it's apart. I want to Dremel out some of the fuselage so I can slide the batteries back a little further. I just want a little more FCG to make it a little more sensitive, pitch sensitive, I guess, but in general, more agile. So also got my my two faithful assistants, Tom Ford and Roku here. They'll be helping out as well. That's Tom as in Tomcat, Ford as in Ford Mustang. I have no interest in fashion. Name just made sense. And then Mr. Roku, which is 6 in Japanese because he's our 6th cat. So the first thing, I'm going to use a wireless Dremel. Wireless is definitely much preferred. And then I'm just going to use this sanding drum. I already looked at the fuselage and made sure that if I Dremel it out, it doesn't look like it's going to compromise the integrity of the fuselage. Looks like it's pretty stout bit of foam here, but I will reinforce it a little bit with a little bit of epoxy, just to try to keep a little bit of strength in the area that I took out by taking out some of the foam. Shouldn't affect it too much, but we'll do that, and then I'll use my JB Weld clear weld to attach the nose back to the fuselage. Okay, so that's not totally complete for the epoxy work. As you can see, there actually are some gaps. Everything on the bottom fits flush, that fits flush, and the lower edge of that fits flush. So it could be that a little bit of foam came off in the crash, or it could just be due to the crunching and warping. You get that sometimes. But what I'll do is I'll mix up some more epoxy once this is all dry, and I'll fill in any gaps there are, or if there are any places where things are loose and I feel like there needs to be some more reinforcement. But it's basically done. Next step will be to reassemble and fly, and I'll show you that. Welcome back to the Gerad Riester channel. Some eagle-eyed viewers may notice that there's some continuity issues between the videos. Throughout this one video on the repair of the Hobby King Viper 64mm. There are many reasons for that. You may also notice some changes to the studio. It's going through some improvements, and I think it'll be far more visually appealing once I get it where I want it to be. I have my faithful assistant, Tom Ford, here. He's letting me know that he wants attention by clawing my kneecap, and it's effective. Well, he doesn't really need to let me know. But anyway, so just wanted to walk you through the finished product. So we got the Viper finished. I got the landing gear back on there, although my ultimate intent is to make this a hand launch aircraft. It's very light, for 6S especially. It's very light, and it's got a lot of power, so I think it'll do well. I've got the buddy, I got the Spectrum AR631 or whatever. It's an AS3X Plus. So it's got the launch assist. I've got safe setup on it. But before I talk about the finished product in detail, I want to talk about the more important aspect of it, which is how to end up crashing it. That's what we all need to look at when we have a crash. Crashing is part of RC, but we want to avoid doing the same thing over and over again. We want to avoid making the same mistakes. So what did I do? A couple poor decisions. The first is flying it in winds that, at least for my skill level, were too strong for this plane. If I had a heavier airplane like my 8S F-16, it might have been all right. It probably would have been challenging, but it, quote, penetrates a little bit better. Bigger flies better, heavier flies better in wind because it doesn't get tossed around as much. The other thing is I've got the CG as far back as I can get it, or I did. Actually, I made one modification where I ground away a little bit of foam, and now I'll be able to move the CG even further back. But in winds like that, having a nose-heavy CG, slightly nose-heavy, is going to help you because it's not going to be quite as twitchy in the wind. So those two things, flying in winds that strong and then having the CG that far back, made things harder on me. So I'm still thinking about, the speeds that I used. I was thinking if I used a higher speed, it would handle the wind better, which is generally true. No flaps, higher speed. But there are some variables. I have a gyro setup on there that's based on, so it's a throttle-based gain off of John from Two Brothers RC's model. So I just modeled my setup off of his. Actually, the one he did on his Freewing F-16, I've now got that on a lot of my models with some variations. But it's a good setup. It works. I've tried it on several airplanes, and it works well. So the gyro gain setup, it's different depending on your flap setting. The flap switch is a mode control on the mix that I have. So I get more gains when I've got flaps deployed than I do with flaps up, which makes sense because you're flying faster with flaps up, and you want to dampen out the gains. Well, what that also means is if I'm landing and I'm not using flaps, I don't have as much gyro help, which in the strong winds, it might have helped me out. So even though normally big airplanes, little airplanes, and stronger winds and gusty winds, you generally want less flaps. You want less lift because the winds are going to affect you less. But the way I've got it set up with the gyro, it may have benefited me to actually deploy the flaps because I would have gotten more gains, higher gains, which may have helped me with the wind. So some various considerations, but number one, number two, don't fly in winds, that are too strong for your skill level and or for the aircraft. And the other thing that I said, which I can't remember. Oh yeah, CG. Move your CG forward a little bit if you are going to be flying in stronger winds. I was pushing the envelopes, not multiple, just one. Pushing the envelope with this airplane intentionally. It's relatively inexpensive. Felt like it was a good opportunity to push myself. So normally, different airplane, more expensive airplane, I probably wouldn't have flown in those conditions. So let's talk about the plane. So if you look back, well, you probably watched this video all the way through, so you don't have to look back. The things that I repaired, this wingtip was ripped off. The nose forward of the intake, just right at the edge of the intake, basically was torn off. That was it, really. And then the gear, but the gear I already ripped off and taped back on. That's the one flaw of this Hobby King Viper. The one thing that I would want them to improve on is the gear mounts are very, very, very fragile. I've slammed in some airplanes way, way, way harder than I landed this plane, and the gear had no problems. This one, the mounts, the plastic parts that sort of hold it in, clips, broke. So hopefully they improve that. But my solution is I tape the gear on. And it works. I've actually flown it. I retaped it after I repaired it, but I flew it many, 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 many times with the gear taped on like this, and it was fine. Gear stayed on, no problem, stayed straight, and it was good. So you look at the belly here. I got some runs in the epoxy I used and stuff. Again, different airplane. I probably grind it flush. In this case, one, how much drag is that really going to create? And it's also, we're not talking about a wing. So on a wing, something like that is going to affect the airflow over the wing. It's going to disrupt the airflow, and it could cause a section of the wing to stall before another section. Well, depending on which part of the wing it is, for example, an outboard section, actually, you see I did epoxy this. I actually filled it and I ground it smooth because this would cause the outboard portion of this wing to stall probably before the inboard portion. When the outboard portion stalls before the inboard portion, that's where you get a wing drop, and that's where it'll snap over on you. Some considerations there. Here on the fuselage, it's not going to really affect much of anything, so I just left it alone for now. Doing this video a bit hastily because I'm going to fly this plane tomorrow, and I want to get it on the video before I fly it. So if I mess it up, you can see it before I do that. That said, I don't think I'm going to mess it up, and I'll be able to bring it back and show you. I'll stay tuned. Not I will. I hope you do. I hope you stay tuned for the video where I take it out to the field and fly it again. I expect that it'll fly great. So I got some cosmetic issues. Actually, really doesn't look too bad considering what it's been through. But I think it's going to fly really well. So stay tuned for that. I'll post up a video of it flying post repair, and you'll see that you know, structurally it's sound, and aerodynamically it's going to be good too. Thanks for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, click the thumbs up. That would be the like. Click the bell if you like. As I've said before, do whatever you want. I'm not ordering you around, not telling you what to do. You know, do whatever you want to do. But I'm asking humbly if you would like and subscribe to the video. And remember, at Gerad Riester, YouTube, anything worth doing is worth overdoing. Don't take shortcuts. Thanks. Have a good one.